Okay, welcome. We are live. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to do the record over here. We got the recording over here and recording over here. Everything's live. Beautiful. Welcome to our Wednesday night Kabbalah class, our Sefer Yetzirah-Class, and another exciting class this evening as we are delving deeper into the Sefirot. For those following along, we're in chapter 1, subsection 5, page 48, where we're entering into this concept where it talks about the Sefer Yetzirah, where it talks about, it doesn't speak about directions, but speaks about depths. And we briefly touched about this, last class, about this idea of depth. Just keep in mind, every single word, not just in the Sefer Yetzirah, but in all scripture, in all Torah, is precise. And if the term is used depth instead of direction, then there's obviously a deep meaning for that. No pun intended. Okay, so we're about halfway down the paragraph we're at right now. It says, "It is written, counsel in man's heart is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out. Although the depth of these directions is infinite and can be described mentally, the first technique involves verbal thought. Through being a man of understanding. Gradually, then, one can also learn to depict these infinite depths non-verbally." Again, the Sefer Yetzirah is an instruction manual. It was written as an instruction manual on how to traverse the Sefirot and to climb into the upper worlds. And that's what it was used for by the ancient Kabbalists, about these deep secrets of wisdom and how to as we said, literally to go out of the body and for the soul to traverse into upper worlds and to get into deep meditative states and transcendental types of experiences. So it is written not just as a text for learning and for knowledge, but as an instruction manual. I don't know if anyone actually uses it in these days for such things, but that it says right here, this is a technique. We spoke a little bit about this earlier on in Sefer Yetzirah, about this concept of verbal and nonverbal thought. So it says the first technique involves verbal thought through being a man of understanding. Then one can learn to depict these infinite depths non-verbally. So the first idea is that you're using Bina consciousness. I mean, you're delving into the depths of the Sefirot to try to comprehend them in your mind to the best way you possibly can. Again, we're talking about godly entities, which is not so simple to comprehend in a deep way. But ultimately, then you get to this concept of understanding them in nonverbal thought, which is very interesting because the whole concept of nonverbal thought is exactly how it sounds, that there's no...
Can you explain in simple words the sentence? Counsel in man's heart is like deep water. I don't know what is counsel.
Counsel is like advice, if you will. To give counsel, to give advice. Understanding, if you will.
In man's heart is like deep water. What is the meaning?
But a man of understanding will draw it out. It means you have to the term is used. It's an interesting term for one who is a Talmid Chacham, or someone who engages in the study of Torah. It's called osik, working. It's a very strange term. What is it? Lomed, learning Torah. It doesn't even osik Torah, to work the Torah. Because the Torah is infinite, and God is infinite. And the secrets of all of God's creation and the secrets of our mission in this world are buried deep in our heart. And this is what the Alter Rebbe says in the Tanya, that if you search for it like a hidden treasure, you'll find it, the fear of God. What does it mean? It means inside our hearts are the answer to everything, the depths of our heart. In fact, the sphere of Keter is Penimius Alev. It's in the depth of the heart. This is where the Adam Kadmon lies, into the depth, the deepest recesses. So you have to work. And that's what it means. What is deep water? If you look into the water and you look at it, you're like, oh, it's very deep. How am I supposed to, or I can't go down there. I can't touch the bottom. But you keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. But a man of understanding will draw it out, meaning you can pull out through a man of understanding, through using Bina, verbal consciousness. You can delve deeper into things. The more you study Torah, and the more, and people need to understand that putting on a shiur is not the same thing as learning Torah. It's nice, better than nothing. But if you're just listening to someone giving a shiur, it's not the same as sitting and breaking your head with a piece of Chassidus or a piece of Gemara and going into it and relearning it again and going deeper. And every time you're doing it with concentration. I was speaking to you the other night about this idea, how even when I'm learning the sichos of Nun Aleph Nun Beis every single year, they're deeper, and I'm going deeper and deeper inside of them because it's infinite. So that's what it means. A man of understanding will draw it out, will pull it out from going deep. Everything is about going deep. It's about going to the depths of anything. The difference. There's a saying in the secular vernacular that says the devil is in the details. Say God is in the details, meaning, or the riches are in the niches. The niches are the fine points. It's the people who, there are people who become billionaires from figuring out how to split a little place where there's an opportunity to make money that someone didn't see, and then they open it up and they're like, how did that person think of that? Because you're digging deep. Everything's about going deep. And that's this concept right now. So if you go into these depths, which are infinite, with verbal consciousness, with understanding, eventually you will come to understand them non-verbally, which is a very hard concept to understand what that means. Maybe he's going to explain it, because the whole idea of non-verbal thought is literally not thinking. It's Chokhmah consciousness. So how to understand something with Chokhmah consciousness, goes back to the beginning of the Sefer Yetzirah, which says that you'll understand with wisdom, and you'll understand with wisdom, and with wisdom you'll understand. Like, it's Chokhmah and Bina consciousness working together to get to this place where you're using the Bina consciousness to dig, if you will, and understand, to a place where you get to an aha of Chokhmah consciousness, where it's there. It becomes almost part of you, if that makes sense. Okay. So now he's going to give us a little bit of an exercise on how to do this, which is pretty cool. Okay. The first exercise is try to depict the depth of beginning. Attempt to picture an infinity of time in the past. Let the mind travel back to a minute ago, an hour ago, a day ago, a year ago, and continuing until you reach a level where you are trying to imagine an infinity ago. There's a lot of exercises, believe it or not, in the Sefer Yetzirah. Yeah, the Sefer Yetzirah is filled with meditations, with exercises, and it's pretty cool. We can't begin to understand. We speak about it a lot. This concept of being closed-minded, about thinking you understand something, or I got it now, I figured it out, or not, now it makes sense at a certain level. But the second we have a realization that we think we know something, we stop learning, because we already say, okay, I already know it. It's like people say, like, why do I daven every day? I know what it says. So what do you have to daven? Why do we learn Chumash every single year? You know what the Chumash says by now? No. Because you're going deeper, you're going deeper inside of it. So it's the same idea. These concepts, our brain starts building out, especially as we get older, walls, if you will. And it starts getting boxed in. This is someone who is Chendel Kepakot, small-mindedness. You're trying to talk to them, and you're trying to expand their consciousness, and they're stuck like this, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't make sense to me. No, that can't be. That can't. Why? Because it's something outside of your realm that you've experienced. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So the whole idea is to kind of open up, and our brain is locked. And no matter how we expand it, there's more room for expansion. The universe is continuously expanding, and our brain is continuously expanding. But if we limit it, we stop its capabilities, which is why it's so important. Just like it's important to walk, to exercise, to move, to keep active, it's also important to read, to learn, to expand your knowledge base all the time. Because if not, your brain just starts getting soft, and the less you use it, the less available it becomes, and the more difficult it is to learn new things. Okay, so now it says, then do the same with regard to the future. Meaning, you're now trying to travel into the future in your mind, right? maybe what tomorrow looks like, or maybe the next day, or maybe a year from now. And this is what we talk about in setting goals. Successful people practice what we call manifestation. Manifestation means that you picture in your mind what you want your life to be like, or what success looks like, or what a win looks like to you. And the clearer you could see the picture, and the more you write it down, and the more you put into details, you turn it into reality. It's literally a form of yesh ma'ayin. It's similar, lahavdil, to getting abilities like God has, which the ability to create something that didn't exist there before from absolutely nothing. Okay. The next exercise involves trying to imagine good and infinite good and infinite evil. These limits are pure ideas, which cannot be verbalized. Okay, so what does it mean, trying to imagine infinite good and infinite evil? We're starting to get a little glimpse of what evil looks like. It's starting to get revealed. Things that many of us have been aware of for a very long time, but only now are starting to come to the forefront. But the idea is that he's the author of the Sefer Yetzirah, which is, according to most accounts, Avram Avinu, and some say Adam Rishon, is showing us how each one of these sefirot, we already learned, there's 5 levels of depths, or 5 directions. We already did past and present, which is Chochmah and Bina. And now he's teaching us how to try to imagine Keter and Malchus, which is infinite good and infinite evil. Remember, evil, according to the Sefer Yetzirah and Kabbalah, means self-consciousness. It means being aware of yourself, being self-focused, where your entire reality revolves around you, instead of the reality revolving around God. So now the limits are pure ideas which cannot be verbalized. This is what we say infinite good and infinite evil. Finally, one must imagine the limits of the spatial dimensions. One must perceive the height of the sky and beyond the sky, the depth of the earth and beyond the earth. In this manner, one gradually trains the mind to depict the infinite. Since the Sefirot themselves are also infinite, this exercise can help one attain communion with the Sefirot, or connection to the Sefirot. So again, this is not something we're doing right here now. This takes time, it takes effort to literally go through the 5 different pairs of the Sefirot, 10 Sefirot together, each one representing opposite energies, and to close your eyes and open your mind and try to picture what infinite south, what infinite north, meaning south, and it just keeps going on. Like, okay, we look at the North Pole and the South Pole, that's the globe, but north goes obviously beyond the scope of the globe. So try to picture north that keeps going higher and higher and higher, and south that keeps going lower, and past and future, and good and evil, and east and west, and all these directions. And what you're doing is you're opening your mind, and you're training your capabilities to try to comprehend, to the best we can with a finite mind, infinity. And the more we can connect to this concept of infinity, the more we can connect to the Sefirot, which are truly infinite, and the more we can connect to God, who is truly infinite. And now we get into the juicy part. It says the individual can then learn how to climb the tree of the Sefirot. And that's really what the Sefer Yetzirah was built as, an instruction manual on how to climb the tree of the Sefirot, because they are set up like a tree, right? There we go. Here's the Sefirot again, and how you go through this concept of climbing and climbing and higher and higher and higher, and traversing through the worlds. So the individual can then learn how to climb the tree of the Sefirot and eventually approach the loftiest spiritual heights. This is accomplished through these depths. It is written, a song of steps. From the depths I call to you, God. One calls out to God by meditating on the depths, and then one can ascend through a series of steps. This particular psalm or Tehillim is therefore called a song of steps. So the Sefer Yetzirah points out many psukim in the Torah and the Tanakh that's on a pshat sounds like, I called you from the depths, God, meaning like, I don't know, no one will think about what that means. We say that pasuk before we blow the shofar, Rosh Hashanah. Min ha-metzaraya, right? Katsiya. Calling from the depths. So there's many interpretations on a pshat, but now he's saying, what does it mean? It means the infinite depths by going into the depths of these different directions, these 5 different, I don't know, call the directions, these 5 different ways of bringing opposite energies together, this is where we find God. We find God by training our mind and training ourselves to realize that there's so much more to reality than what we think. It helps us become, it's actually today's Tanya speaks about it as well. It helps us to come to the realization how insignificant and tiny and little our existence is, and how infinite and massive and great God is. Where most people think of themselves as it's so important and valuable, even if you think you're nothing. Again, an ego has 2 sides of a coin. There's the extroverted side of the coin of ego, which is how I'm so wonderful. And the introverted is I'm such a miserable nothing. Blah, blah. Either way, you're focused on yourself. It's all self-focused. When you're self-focused, it's evil. When your worldview or your understanding or perception of reality is based on a limited knowledge base without bringing God into that, you're living in a very, very small capacity, which is what the ruling class wants. That's what the ruling class wants. Shut up, do as you're told, stick your head in your phone all day long and watch videos that mean absolutely nothing to you or your life, and go shopping and buy things. Entertainment, shopping, and then they could just keep us as sheep doing whatever they say to do. And whenever all of a sudden there's panic, everyone jumps. No one's questioning anything. Why? Because you're living in a constricted reality where you're relying on it's like a herd of sheep. The sheep don't know where they're going. All they're looking at is the tuchus of the sheep in front of it. And that one's looking at the tuchus in front of the sheep, and they're just moving. And where are they going? No one knows. Where everyone else is going, that's where I'm going. It closes our ability to be free thinkers. And that's what they want. But truly free people realize that that's not reality. That's prison. That's Egypt. So these ideas are how we can plumb these depths. And I'll leave it to you all if you want to do these exercises on your own and see how far you could stretch the inner workings of your mind and see if you're capable of reaching beyond. It's an interesting thing. Just close your eyes for a second and think of the sky and think above the sky. Think about the stars and the planets and beyond. What's beyond? I don't know. Try to push your mind beyond it. And you keep pushing beyond boundaries, beyond obstacles. And you'd be surprised at how much you can open up your consciousness. Anyone's ever done plant medicine, it's a little taste of what this is like. You enter into other realms of consciousness and you realize how limited your consciousness is once it becomes expanded, right? You don't know how limited your consciousness is until you start expanding it. When you expand it, you're like, whoa, it's an amazing thing because you're like, it's an enlightening experience because you realize how limited in scope your reality is. And it's nice to push beyond these boundaries or these limitations. Okay. The singular master. So that's a whole thing that can be experienced. The singular master. This can also be read as the master is singular. And a similar expression is found below, right? The pasuk says over here, it's towards the end, once we go to the depth of beginning and good and end, good, evil, all the other ones. At the end, it says, Adon Yechid, which literally can mean a singular master, or the master is singular. Adon Yechid, that he is singular. What does it mean? After describing the 5-dimensional continuum defined by the Sefirot, the Sefer Yetzirah specifically refers to God as the singular master. So it's, again, everything is so precise. The ordering, the way everything is set up is exact. So it starts off with the 10 Sefirot of nothingness, and it says their measure is 10, which are blima, no end. And then we go through all the different depths, the 5 different dimensions. And then we come to, after that, it says the singular master. So it says, after describing the 5-dimensional continuum defined by the Sefirot, the Sefer Yetzirah specifically refers to God as the singular master. The Hebrew for singular here is yachid, indicating a complete and absolute unity, right? The word, again, is yachid. We have studied enough Chassidus to know the difference in yachid and echad, right? Yachid is Shema, Echad is Baruch Shem. Yechid is there's nothing other than God. Nothing exists literally in the most simple sense other than God. Echad is there is an existence. We're here. We're people. There's a creation, but it's all nullified to Hashem. But there's a difference. Yechid is complete, absolute unity. There's literally nothing else. The unity of God is absolute. He is not like a person who consists of many parts. He is not even like the most simple physical object, since even such an object has 3 dimensions. To say that God is bound by dimensions would in itself introduce an element of plurality in his essence, and this is excluded. After the Sefer Yetzirah has defined the 5-dimensional continuum, one might be misled to think that God himself is a 5-dimensional being. In other words, okay, now I can understand. So what is God? He's a depth of beginning, a depth of end, a depth of good, a depth of evil, a depth of above, a depth of below, a depth of east, a depth of west, a depth of north, and a depth of south. No, those are the Sefirot. They're part of creation. God creates the Sefirot. They're connected to the creator, but they're not their creator. And therefore it stresses his unity at this point. The concept of dimensionality does not apply to God at all. So it's fascinating. It takes us through that each one of these Sefirot is infinite. And there's infinite depths to every single continuum that exists. But God's above that. That doesn't define God. Okay, after that it goes on and it says, El Melech Ne'aman. God is a faithful king. In Hebrew, this is El Melech Ne'aman. The initial letters of the phrase spell out Amen. There's so many nice little tidbits in the Sefer Yetzirah, like little nuggets that you come across that are just interesting, things you don't think about. And according to the Talmud, it is this phrase that defines the word Amen. Interesting enough. So it says in, I'm curious, I just want to look at the note real quick, where that's brought down in the Gemara. So it says, we're now in chapter 1, that is footnote 115. And it says over there, Sanhedrin. So in Gemara Sanhedrin, page 111a, it literally says there that Amen is a Rasha Tevis, an acronym for El Melech Ne'aman. God, the faithful king. Interesting. So it means that God is faithful, meaning he is accessible only through faith. Right? Which is very interesting. Because if you look at the Sefirot, what's the highest Sefirah? It's Keter. Keter has 3 heads. What's the highest head? Amunah, faith. Because at the highest levels of knowledge, of understanding, of wisdom, of comprehending God, there's a leap of faith that has to take place. You don't take a leap of faith without understanding. You have to take a leap of faith at the highest level you can reach, right? You climb up to the 100th floor of the 100-story building, and then you leap up to God. You don't start from the first floor. So we're obligated to come to learn, to know, to understand God the best we can. But there's a faith. There's a faith not only in coming to connect to God, but in accepting his mitzvot, and accepting his will, and accepting his commandment, and knowing that everything he does is for good. And whatever path he's setting us on, we know there's a purpose. And if this is the faith that is in actualities that we have to realize. So it says he's only accessible through faith. The human intellect can only grasp concepts within the 5-dimensional continuum of space, time, and spirit. God, the infinite being, however, is beyond this. He may relate to the universe as king, but he himself is above the grasp of our mentality. Okay, then we get to the next part of the pasuk, which says dominates them all. The Hebrew word for dominate here is moshel. There are 2 synonyms that indicate dominance, melech and moshel. A melech is a king who interacts with his subjects and is therefore affected by them. A moshel, on the other hand, is a tyrant and a dictator who rules but it is no way influenced by his subordinates. Interesting, right? God is sometimes called a melech, but this refers only to his actions through malchus, through kingship, the lowest of sefirot, right? Because this is how God descends through malchus and humbles himself to come down and bring himself, so to speak, down to our level, to relate to us and to be with us. In our reality, right? God doesn't sit and say, you puny nothing human, you want a relationship with me? Come. God comes down and says, okay, I'm going to be in the dirt with you. Whatever you're going through, I'm here with you. This is malchus. It's the lowest of the sefirot. The infinite being, however, is actually a moshel, an absolute ruler who is in no way affected by his creation. The scripture thus says, if you are righteous, what do you give him? What does he receive from your hand? This is particularly true of God's relationship to the sefirot. He is in no way affected or defined by them. So it's just emphasizing the Sefer Yetzirah that these two realities take place. On one reality, through climbing through the sefirot, through learning the sefirot, through connecting to the sefirot, we can come to a deep understanding and relationship with God, but we must remember at all times that is a relationship through God as his connection to us as a king, as melech. Meaning that he has lowered himself, so to speak, to creation so we can have that relationship with God. But don't think for a second that God is only limited to that level of relationship, just like God is not limited to the relationship of the sefirot. Because even before God created the sefirot always existed in potential within God, because that's how he set it up. But God never had to create the world. And if God didn't create the world, or God forbid, on Erev Rosh Hashanah every year said, I don't want the world to exist anymore, what happens? That's it. All the sefirot return back into Hashem, and it's like they never existed. They don't take place anymore. To show that God is infinitely higher than everything we're learning. So it's a duality. It's a duality of coming to know God, of coming to understand God, of doing everything possible to connect to him, and at the same time realizing that it's impossible to truly grasp God because he's infinite.
We are more connecting to the melech and the Moshe.
100%. That's what I just said. It's the only place we can connect to. You can't.
Everything is melech in our life.
That's exactly what he's saying. That's the only level we can connect to. We can't connect to him at the level of Moshel, because at the level of Moshel, he's not affected by us. There's no. It's beyond. It's beyond these type of relationships. Okay. From his holy habitation. The Hebrew word for habitation here is ma'on. The expression holy habitation, ma'on kadosh, occurs a number of times in the Bible. It is also used again below, in subsection 1, verse 112, which we'll get to later on. The word ma'on is defined by the verse, O God, you have been a habitation for us, ma'on, from Tehillim. The Midrash interprets this to indicate that God is the habitation of the world, and the world is not his habitation. God is the place of the world, meaning defining the space-time-spirit continuum, and he is not defined by any continuum whatsoever. The continuum is contained in God, as it were, and he is not contained in the continuum. It's the same idea we just said basically about Melech and Moshel, but as it's connected to the world. That this world doesn't define God. He creates it, he dwells in it, but it's not him. It's infinitely above it. The word ma'on is very closely related to the word makom, meaning place. Makom comes from the root kom, meaning to stand. Hence, makom denotes a place in physical space where something could stand. Ma'on, on the other hand, comes from the same root as ona, meaning a time or period. You're going to enjoy this because we're getting into very Hebrew words and splitting them and explaining what they are, and it's so interesting. Meaning a time or period. Just as makom defines a point in space, so ma'on defines a point in the space-time continuum. Again, space represents 3 directions. It's za, north, south, east, west, and up and down. time is Chokmah and Bina, and soul is, or spirit is Keter and Malchus. Excuse me. Thus, when the Sefer Yetzirah says that God dominates the Sfirot from his holy Ma'on, it indicates that he is the place and habitation of the five-dimensional continuum. Not only does God circumscribe the universe of space, but he also even defines time and spirit. Hi, how are you? Page 51. As discussed above. The word holy, kadosh, denotes separation from the mundane. The infinite being is separated from all the sphirot, and in relation to him, even the sphirot are mundane. So even though the sphirot are godly, and they're holy, and they're Ein Sof, and they're part of God's creation, compared to God, it's like Chol, Kadosh v'Chol. It's there's no comparison, completely removed from it. Okay, and then we finish up with chapter 1, subsection 5, where he gets to the last place, where the last pasuk is Adi Ad, eternity of eternities. In Hebrew, the Adi Ad and this expression occurs numerous times in the Bible. There are two synonyms which denote eternity. The first is le'olam, which usually means forever, which indicates the end point of the time continuum, often using the expression le'olam va'ed. Chi Adonenu Moreinu v'Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach le'olam va'ed. Right? It's exactly the pasuk he's talking about now. What does it mean? It means forever. That God's kingship will be established, I'm talking about Yechina, not only in the heavens, but on the physical earth. And that it will exist forever. The world will never falter. The world will never end again. And God's chosen king will rule forever. So it says over here, this expression eternity here denotes the realm outside the time continuum, where the concept of time does not exist at all.
This is the Olam Va'ed.
Yeah.
But not the...
Correct. But it's another expression of eternity. So Adi Ad and Le'olam Va'ed both mean forever. But now he's going to explain a little bit different over here. Even in such a timeless domain, however, there is still a kind of hypertime, which events can occur in logical sequence. The Midrash calls this hypertime the order of time, Seder Zmanim. The expression eternity of eternities, Adi Ad, denotes a domain that is beyond even such hypertime. Yeah.
So forever and eternity, there's a little bit, still something with time, and is above. Did I understand it right? No.
Okay, let's go through it again.
Why am I asking?
So, no, it's okay.
No, I'll tell you why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because you say the pasuk, and when the Rebbe is blessing for wedding, he said
Beni Adi Ad. Yeah.
So what is the meaning by it?
Okay, let's go. Okay, we'll go through it again. So Adi Ad, it says there are two synonyms which denote eternity. The first is le'olam, usually means forever, which indicates the end point of the time continuum, often using the expression le'olam va'ed. This expression eternity here denotes the realm outside the time continuum. Wait, hold on. The expression eternity here, okay, denotes the realm outside the time continuum where the concept of time does not exist at all. Even in such a timeless domain, however, there is still a kind of hypertime, which events can occur in a logical sequence, meaning even though it goes on forever, a sequence of the time. So the Midrash calls this hypertime the order of time. The expression eternity of eternities denotes a time that, right, so exactly. Adi Ad means even above this hypertime. An everlasting edifice, right? So it's very interesting. Just to dwell on this point a little bit, because I don't know if we're going to start the next section, because, yeah, hold off on it. But this concept of time is a very interesting thing. We have to understand that time is a creation. In fact, we have the ability to live above time. I know it sounds strange, but it's true. Time is Chokmah and Bina consciousness, right? So time can expand. We used the example of plant medicine earlier, and it's the only thing I could think of right now because it's what pops in my brain. That's when one experiences altered states of consciousness through plant medicines or other types of tools. You literally are in a state of existence or reality, but you're above time. In other words, it could seem like so much is experienced, is learned, and like afterwards, like a few hours went by, and it's like you could totally be disoriented where you come in. There's really no sense of time, no sense of, because you're now at that point in a state of above time. Time expands. I don't know how to explain it.
It was 2 weeks and
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, how could it be? Like 2 weeks is
And
crazy.
you know, there's an old saying that if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Because if you give someone something to do and the person isn't busy, they're going to find every excuse or I can't get to it now, or I'm going to do it. Oh, today I'm busy. What are you busy with? I got a call with my friend. Like everything takes up so much time because you don't have a schedule and things aren't aligned. When someone is busy and you're measuring and using every second of the day, you have the capacity to expand it to so much more. You know, the famous time when Adin Steinholtz went to the Rebbe with a long list of projects he's working on. He told the Rebbe, it's too much. Here's the different books I'm working on. Here's my schedule. Here's my classes. Please tell me which ones I should remove, which are less important. The Rebbe said, you need to add more. I can tell you personally, experiencing that sometimes I really feel that I'm living in some capacities above time, because there's days and there's weeks where I'm so much going on and I'm doing so many things, and it just becomes part of my life until we go on vacation or we take a break or we go away. And then 2-3 weeks later, I come back into my life and I have a headache. I'm like, it's frightening looking at my schedule. I'm like, how am I supposed to do all these things? Because I'm not in the sequence anymore. Once I'm out of the sequence, and it's like you pop out of it and then you try to go back in, it's like, whoa. And in fact, in Samak Vav, I don't remember which mimer, we learned it with Rabbi Gafni, he should live and be well. It's one of the, maybe the 10th, 15th mimer, somewhere in there. I have to go back and look at it because it's very interesting. The Rebbe Rashab has 2 or 3 mimarim where he talks about how you can live above time. That you can literally get to, I mean, our Rebbe, we can't compare him to us because he's not a human being, he's superhuman. But the amount of things, you see the yom-yom of what the Rebbe is, just what they learned on a yearly basis. They finished the whole Tanakh, they finished the whole Shas, they learned 100 Maimarim, they gave 400 Maimarim, they're having Yechidas, private audiences all day, they're traveling. It's impossible. If you took all the activities of one of our Rebbeim and wrote down how much they took in a day, it makes up way more than 24 hours. And what about eating and sleeping? It doesn't add up. The amount of time doesn't equate because they're living above time. In fact, when Mashiach comes, we're going to live above time. In other words, we're going to live in a world where there's a time, there's a clock, but you're not bound by the time. It's kind of hard to explain. It's like living in reality, but not being bound by, like a tzaddik is not bound by the physical world around him. He can walk through a wall if he wants to. You know the story from the Alter Rebbe, right? And the Alter Rebbe and Levi Berditchev were at a wedding, and it was really packed. There was like hundreds of people there, and they were like in a back room somewhere, and they had to walk through all the crowd to get out. And they had some mission they had to go on, and it was going to take a few minutes to go through the crowd. And Levi Berditchev turned to the Alter Rebbe and said, "Let's just walk through the wall." There was no one could see, so he was out there. So we don't do such things. They could have. How is it possible? How can a human being walk through a physical wall? Because we can't understand that it's like the Aron HaKodesh that was in the Beis Hamikdash in the Holy of Holies. You measured it, but it didn't take up space. We are connected to the Creator. And by being connected to the Creator, we have the ability to tap in, not that we are God, but God-like capabilities. And we're living so far removed from anywhere near what our potentials are. It's frightening. I know, but it's frightening. It's frightening. It's just no, it's not meant to be annoying. It's meant to be an awareness that we can do so much more than what we think we can. And what we think our capacity is not our capacity. It's not. And that's what we just finished learning about. This concept, it's interesting how he's talking about this concept of infinity. And we just learned how each one of the spherotes are infinite. And we have to train our mind to think beyond limitations and think beyond, okay, what's the furthest east I could think of? India, China, no, go past the globe, get out of the globe, get into the universe, go traversing through the stars. Like there's so much capabilities. There's just to end of this point, there's different opinions on what is going to happen when Mashiach comes. Most opinions say we're going to live forever, that we're never going to die in a physical body. There are some opinions that say that what is going to happen is that we are now living in the first 7,000 years, the first sequence of 1 through 7, right? We know that there's 7 days in the week, and there's 7 years in a Shemitah cycle, and there's 7,000 years in creation, or 6 days of creating and 1 day of rest, 7. That this is the first 7,000. Then there'll be 7 more 7,000 realities, like we're in the year 5786, right? So we get to the year 7,000. There'll be 7 7,000s, 49,000 years. Then we'll hit a Yovel year, 50,000. And then there'll be another 7 year. And that will repeat its sequence 7 times for, what is that, 350,000 years. And then our souls will no longer encapsulate a body, and will just be a soul without a body. There's opinions that will say after that period of time, that'll be the end. That God, that we're not going to exist forever. That there's going to be it's no matter how you look at it, it's so far beyond what we can comprehend, because we're like counting days over here. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But it's the same kind of idea of time will be infinite, but there'll be measurement to it. And that's kind of what he was saying, which is the Leolam Va'ed, that it's infinite, it goes on forever, but there will be a measurement of time in the infinity. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
No, I was at an appointment that just took much longer. Yeah.